All right, guys, here we go. It's week 22 of fantasy hockey. For some people, this is their first week of fantasy hockey playoffs. For others, it's the last week they have leading up to fantasy hockey playoffs. So a very, very critical week that we are going to dive into. And I'm going to give you all the best streamer options, whether it's forwards, defensemen, or goaltenders, so that you guys can min-max your way to winning this fantasy hockey week. For some of you, it's now do or die mode. You have to be sure that you're on top of streaming players, especially given the schedule for this week. So let's get right into the video, guys. Here is your week 22 preview. Starting us off, the best schedule, guys. It's a very typical NHL schedule, but it is a little bit more heavily loaded on the busy nights. So that means that the off nights are going to have fewer and fewer amounts of games. If I pull up the schedule right here, you can see that on the 19th, which will be the Wednesday, and the 21st, which will be the Friday, there's only a total of 3 games played between those 2 nights. So if you have a really solid team in terms of your higher end players, you're going to do really well this week because everybody's going to have the chance to play their full roster on the Thursday as well as the Saturday. But that being said, the Monday and the Sunday, which are the 17th and the 23rd, also have 5 to 7 games being played, so you will get a decent amount of players on that. So we really want to target these off nights if we can get to them. The Tuesday only has 9 games, so again, pretty manageable. But for right now, we want to target these teams: Boston, Buffalo, LA, Philly, Tampa, and Toronto. These teams have 4 games with 2 off nights. There isn't any team this week that has more than 2 off nights just individually. And then you have a handful of teams here: the Flames, the Blackhawks, the Preds, and the Blues, that have 4 games and 1 off night. So again, also really viable streaming options if you want to look at it that way. But again, we want to target the teams that have 4 games and 2 off nights if you do have limited amounts of streams. For your max schedule, you are going to want to add a Toronto Maple Leaf for the Monday. The reason is the Leafs have 2 off nights to start the week off on the Monday and the Wednesday. And then once that is completed, you can then play them as well on the Thursday, because they do play the Thursday as well if you need to. Or you can drop him or drop somebody and then add a Pittsburgh Penguin for the Friday. The reason why you want to add a Penguin is because they have 2 off nights on the Friday, which is the only game that's being played. It's Pittsburgh versus Columbus on the Friday. That's the only game that's being played, as well as they have an off night on the Sunday also. So that's going to get you a total of 5 games with 4 off nights for this upcoming week. You could also start your week off. If you don't want to stream a Leaf, you could start off by streaming somebody from the Minnesota Wild. That's going to get you 2 off nights. They just don't play a game on the Thursday, and then they play on the Saturday. So you would have to pick up somebody because Pittsburgh doesn't play on the Thursday. So you'd have to pick up like a 3rd team in order to get that 5th game. But if you only want the 4 off nights, you could definitely stream somebody from Minnesota and then add somebody on Pittsburgh on the Friday. The worst schedule this week: if you have somebody from the Wings or the Sharks that you can afford to drop, please do so. Obviously not the bigger name guys like Dylan Larkin, Seider, Celebrini even I would hold on to at this point. But outside of that, there isn't really anybody else on San Jose. But the busy nights, like I said earlier, are the Tuesday, the Thursday, and the Saturday. A very typical NHL schedule. There's 9 games on the Tuesday, 14 games on the Saturday, and 14 games on the Thursday, excuse me, and 14 games on the Saturday as well. So really heavily loaded. You're going to have to make lineup decisions on Thursday and Saturday, so be mindful of that moving forward for this upcoming week. My week 22 priority forward streams, we have Matthew Knies at 54% owned. The Leafs have been mangling their lines as of late, and they have been struggling out of the gate, but Knies continues to be consistent. He's also stapled alongside Austin Matthews, even with the line switch-ups. So he's still skating alongside Austin Matthews, and he's still getting that power play one time where the Leafs are running 5 forwards on that top unit with Mitch Marner up top. So again, really good option for this upcoming week, given the Leaf schedule as well, with 2 off nights to start the week off and 4 total games. Moving on to Quinton Byfield, he has 5 goals in his last 5 games. He's been red hot. Every single position eligibility for Byfield. He's been very good this season. I'm still shocked they don't have him on that top power play unit, but it doesn't matter because he's finding success at 5-on-5. And given the fact that he has 2 off nights for this week, a really good ad in its own right. Now, JJ Peterka is day-to-day listed right now. There are reports that he is feeling a lot better and should be joining the team on their 4-game road trip, which is coming up this week, where they do have 2 off nights. And at 42% owned, I think he's a fantastic option. Every time he plays, he's stapled alongside Tage Thompson, and Tage is going absolutely bananas right now offensively. So you want that exposure. Even though Buffalo isn't really a strong team currently, I want everything to do with Peterka. He's having a fantastic year. Line 1 and power play 1 every time this guy touches the ice. Pick him up. For your deeper options, you've got Pavel Zacha and Warren Foegele, both 15% owned. With Zacha, you get exposure to David Pastrnak, as well as, you know, anytime, all it takes is a couple assists at 5-on-5 or for passes to find the back of the net, and you've paid dividends on your Xhaka stream. Warren Fogle is getting line 3 and getting power play 2 time in LA, but he's seeing a lot of success at 5-on-5 right now. If you go to his game log, his production has been very, very good over the last 5 games. So for those of you in deeper leagues that want a guy that's going to get you some decent shot volume, as well as some, like, he's been hot lately, and sometimes you just have to ride the hot hand. So Fogle should be a good option. If you're looking for options deeper than a 15% owned, I would look to the Leafs. I would look to LA. There aren't really a lot because of how heavily loaded some of these front teams are, but look at the teams that I suggested earlier on. Do a little bit of a deep dive. Spend like 10 minutes looking at teams. You know, what do I need for this week? Do I need peripherals? Am I in a categories league? Do I need points? Like, what is important for me? And then just take some time if you're in a super deep league to find these kind of like lower end players that you should be able to get to. For defenseman stream, again, if you're in a more shallow league, Drew Doughty should be the #1 defenseman that you pick up. 64% own, pair 1, power play 1. A pivot off of this, if you don't have the capability of getting Drew Doughty because you're in a much deeper league, is Brandt Clark. He will be skating on power play 2. Again, much lower ownership. Oliver Ekman-Larsson is a good mix of shots, hits, and blocks. He gives you a little bit of everything. Offensively, he chips in here and there. 24% owned. There isn't anybody on the Leafs. Like, even Morgan Rielly this year just has not been good, and I would not recommend streaming him for this upcoming week. He's skating on the second power play unit. He hasn't been good at 5-on-5. He's not producing. He's not shooting, etc., etc. So if you want to pivot to a Toronto Maple Leaf, Oliver Ekman-Larsson is probably the best mix of shots, hits, and blocks. If you want somebody more block or hit focused, you can go to like a Jake McCabe or Brandon Carlo that's now on the team. But again, it seems like Carlo is still adjusting right now. If you need blocks, absolutely grab Tanev on the Leafs. He is a block machine. Mason Lohrei and Jamie Drysdale are 2 power play 1 options that will be available to you guys this week. Lohrei is still skating on that top power play unit with McAvoy being out. The production has not been there on the Bruins top power play, but all it takes for Lohrei to chip in offensively is just to make a couple passes to Pasternak for a one-timer on that top power play unit, and then he pays massive dividends, guys. So again, if you're looking for a power play 1 defenseman, Lohrei is a great option. If not, you've got Jamie Drysdale at 2% owned, who again doesn't really do too much outside of just being that top power play unit guy in Philly. But again, if you do want some power play exposure, those are your 2 options. And then Nick Seeler, if you're looking for a depth kind of defenseman, if you're in a categories league, if you need hits and blocks, he will be a fantastic option for this upcoming week. Again, 4 games, 2 off nights, so should be readily available to most of you if you need to just stream somebody for peripheral stats. Our goaltenders for this week, Philip Grubauer has been fantastic since coming back up from the AHL. He's had ridiculously good last couple starts, and then he gets a matchup against Chicago this week. Again, I know it's Grubauer. I know he's not the most trustworthy guy, but we do want to target Chicago because of how bad of a team they are, and it is on a busy night. So if for whatever reason you don't have a goalie or you want to stream a goalie, Grubauer is a really good option for this weekend, only 4% owned. Ivan Fedotov, same situation. Like, Philly isn't the best team in the world, but again, they're playing against Chicago on an off night on the Sunday. So 4% own if you can't get to anybody else. But my probably #1 option would be Vitek Vanacek against Pittsburgh. I know Pittsburgh's been hot lately. I know Jari's been hot lately. They've got 4 wins in their last 4 games. Jari looks like a completely new goaltender. But it is Florida, guys, and Vitek Vanacek should be able to hold it down on the backup role there on the back-to-back against Pittsburgh on an off night. And then Joel Hofer at 6% owned is going to get one of the 2 starts against Chicago or Nashville. One's a busy night, one's an off night. They're both really good matchups. St. Louis is solid. Hofer's solid. He's been good as of late as well. So these are your best possible goalie streams for this upcoming week. Guys, that will do for this video. Before you take off, go check out Mike's video if you haven't already. Everything you need to know for fantasy hockey playoffs. He goes in immense detail as to everything that happens for fantasy hockey. So if you haven't seen that video, be sure to check that out, guys. Hit that like and that subscribe button. Also want to thank you guys for an incredible season. We're starting to get down to the wire here. It's very close to the end of fantasy hockey. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the ride. Shout out to everybody that participated in FPPL as well this year. You guys are the absolute goats. I'm more excited about next year now that it's happening. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you in the next video. Good luck in your week 22 matchup.